Okay, peace family. You're tuning into the Pro Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Today we're going to do some programming. I know you didn't expect that, but what we're going to program is going to be essentially it's a multiple choice app, but you can use it for language learning, and it's what I intend to use it for. And because I intend to use it for that, I said to myself, it seems like it's helpful, and I want to share that with you, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Okay, my screen is this is OBS Studio. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the app, right? And by the way, a lot of the things, everything I'm using today is going to be free, right? But you go to this. This is called PyCharm, okay? PyCharm is where you can program Python files, and it automatically makes it look good, right? There's also things you'd want to do to it, like you'd want to import settings. You go to import, and you'd want to import something to make your KV folder look good too, right? You see how it's different colors? Usually everything would look bland and the same color because it's usually just a text file. But the point is that you download PyCharm, you get this. Then as you progress in your programming, you can make everything look a little better for you, right? So here's what the program looks like. I'm just going to start off with that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So you see it has tutanana kesho, right? That, of course, means see you tomorrow. Nakupenda means I like you. Furahisha sana. I know I'm not really good with this. Means, and you could tell sana, I miss you a lot, right? Oh, okay. I mean, sana means a lot. But you see, I made it shake when you get it wrong. And then it's like, you are too funny. Mudan refu bila kuanana, long time no see. Nina furahi kukutana na wewe. And it keeps going like that. I want to show you what it looks like at the end. So I'm just going to skip through. Goodbye, nitakupana. It's a few words. Karabani, you are, no. See you soon. Jina langu ni, niru husu, niku kumbati. Okay. I'm really not good at this. But here's this thing I want you to understand too, right? So you see the time on the top. I'm going to show you how to do all of these elements, right? Including the changing color. Like, pay attention to everything you see. You see the text, you see the changing color, you see the changing color of the buttons, you see these buttons. Oh, you can mute it. And you see how it doesn't make any noises. Jumbo, hello. Jumbo, kila mtu. Hello, everybody. Sikupendi, I don't love you. Webeni muzari. Man, tutuana bade. And see, I actually only pick it up on this because of, I know you're saying, well, you're not doing that great, but I'm actually mostly picking up on it because of this app, right? I don't really know Swahili that well. But I only added a few words, and I'm just trying to rush through right now. And you see it says, congratulations, you made 14 errors. Then it says, do you want to quit? Do you want to restart? And when you restart, it restarts. Now, of course, you could make the time go back, but I didn't add that. And I could tell you how to add that. All right, so let's go into it. So here's the first thing you want to do when you make an app. You want to know what you're going to program, right? So what we're going to program is a Kivy app. First thing you do is you do import Kivy. Now, allegedly, because you see how it's faded out, you don't actually have to. You import this, right? It means that it's unnecessary. It means you're not really using it. But you want to import random because you want, random is basically a program that makes you do things that are random. You see that when you highlight it, it'll show you. And what random, how I use random is that I shuffle the phrases so that they don't always appear in the same order, right? From Kivy, now here's what you do. You say, these are just things that you'll pick up on. I'll actually show you. There's this book that you're going to want to get, which is this one right here. This is the Kivy book, right? And basically you download this Kivy book and it will show you how to use, like you can search through this to figure out how to use Kivy, okay? Kivy is a GUI. GUI means graphical user interface, GUI. Basically, it means that it's going to open up a window. Why? Because what you would do with Python when you're programming is it's going to only output to the terminal. So this is what you'll get from Python. You'll just get this outputted to the terminal. I'll give you an example. So here's how you also X out comments. This is something really important to know too. Basically, if you do this, you open up parentheses, and I guess you could open it up throughout the entire document. But actually, let's not even bother to do that. But here's what you could do, right? You could say print, like basically everything you're going to do is going to print onto the terminal, right? You print hi, and you press, whatever. And so basically, the way how the program works is that it goes from top to bottom. So the first thing is going to be hi. See, it prints out hi. Now, when you imported Kivy, this is what all comes up. Just these, like it imports all the assets of Kivy so that you can then present a window. But that is what it is, right? So from Kivy app, you import app. App basically is that window that you saw earlier, right? If I didn't have anything inside of the window, it would just be a blank screen. And in fact, I could actually show you that by doing, let's see what I could do. Okay, because I said Swahili app, return. Oh yeah, so basically this is Kivy. So what I could do is I could just take this out, I think. Hopefully that works. It might actually bring an error. Yeah, all right, because say look. So this is what it would be like. It's just an empty file. I think you guys can see that, right? Hold on a second, let me double check. It's just an empty file. Yeah. It's just an empty file, just an empty page. And so what I did was I added all these extra stuff into it. And it's very easy with Kivy, and that's why we're using Kivy, right? Because another thing that Kivy does is that it can allow you to make it allows you to make an app, so that you can then put it on your mobile device and add all that other stuff. So I'm going to go through line by line, show you how it's done. Basically, you would import a lot of things that you're going to use. I'm using the app function. I'm using the widget function. Widget is basically just a window, right? It's just a window. So you see the whole thing is class.window. Everything that I programmed is in this Swahili widget, because you can see what happens is this. You have class Swahili app, def build self, doesn't have anything inside of it. But what this says is that I actually imported the Swahili app. And so now everything that I'm doing is inside of the Swahili app. And what the Swahili app does, what you do for this KV is kind of like what people would do for, like when you're programming a web page. There's this language that you use to, like HTML is HTML. This would be HTML. Python would be HTML. And then there's this other thing so that you can program what the formatting looks like. So you could see for Swahili, for this app, I have a grid layout, right? So everything is going to be in this book, right? Everything about the layouts and all that is going to be in this book. You see, you just type grid layout. And of course, if you can't find out what you want, you could just Google search. That's why I have this Google open. And you could find out, you could say, hi, how can I make something that looks like a box, like a grid? And then it'll be like, oh, and you just say with Kivy, and then it would say, oh, you can, Emmanuel Briggs says salute. All right. And then what it would say is that you can find, like you could just search that, right? So I'm just going to show you how to run this through. I want you to do this on your own though, right? So it says grid layout, ID equals grid. So ID equals grid basically means that, ID, like you make your own ID. You can design your own ID. I put down ID grid so that I can call it later, right? And that's how I make it shake, because I would call this later to, when you're doing the Python, you want to hint at what you're coding. So it says self IDS.1.text. So .1 or .grid or whatever is what's going to, that's where you make the ID. So you make your own ID, you make your own names for everything that you're doing, and that will enable you to call them in the program itself. So so this page is going to reference this page and vice versa. And that's really important too. You see how it says Swahili.kv? One of the naming conventions for this thing is that whatever you call this app, you say class Swahili app, whatever you call it, you have to call your Swahili, your KV function, the same thing without the app. Okay, you can't see me pointing, I forgot. But you have to call it the same thing without the app. So if this was main app, right? Class.main app. Wait, watch this. I'll show you. If I said class.main app, right? Then it would not call this KV file, okay? Because, so you say class.main app and then you do main app run, right? And of course, you could read through all this. You could look at other tutorials and you see it doesn't call up any of this page because this is called Swahili.kv instead of main.kv. If this was called main.kv, then it would call it up. And I could show you that as well. So we could just rename it for now. And we could name it main.kv, right? Okay, and watch this. Boom. See what I'm saying? So you want to make sure that you name your file, whatever it is that you're going to name it. You want to name it after whatever you name this right here, minus the word app. So let's just go back because I actually liked it as Swahili, right? But it's not important, right? And then Swahili.run. So all of this is the KV thing. It's just inbuilt. Some things are just inbuilt, and because they're inbuilt, you just do it. You know, you just do it like the word print. You know, why does it print when you say the word print? Because that's how it's programmed. So Kivy is a graphical user interface that opens up windows and all that kind of stuff. You would want to do that. You just follow, like that's half of programming is knowing the language. Okay, so let's go through it. So you would import app, that was app. You'd import widget. You see this class Swahili is widget. You'd import clock. Okay, clock is just gonna help me to start the timer off in the beginning and to start the app going in the beginning, right? Because what I want to do is I want to jump straight into the program instead of making a whole other window that would then jump into the program. But I think ideally you'd want to make a window that jumps into the program, right? So from kivy.core.audio equals import sound loader. And remember, import is like loading, it's like, see the import statement, I don't know why, I didn't really mean to highlight it, but basically you just import a module so that the computer knows to use this module because it's really only using Kivy initially, and Kivy doesn't have all these extra things to it. Like it has print, it has plus and minus and all that stuff, but it doesn't have Kivy in it, doesn't have random in it, doesn't have clock in it. So you'd want to import or load it. Sometimes you'd have to download these things from the internet. When you're using PyCharm, what you could do is you can go to Manage IDE settings, and I think you go to settings, matter of fact. You go to settings, and then you would say, go down here, I think maybe plugins. No, not plugins. Give me 2 seconds. You would do, Project Swahili, you go to Python interpreter, right? You could change what version of Python you're using. As well, you can add different things. So you see I added Kivy. Kivy added some of these other stuff into it as well. And you would just add, you would just search for what's available online. Kivy is available, so you would just search for Kivy, and then you would install that package, okay? If you wanted to do like something with Pygame or anything else, you could do that. And this is the beauty of programming, is that you have this full freedom, and that freedom is going to allow you to make, good, excellent products for our people, right? And then there's also animation. Animation is what I used to shake the whole screen, right? So these are the different sound loaders. Now check this out. You don't have to do those. So this is my scrap paper right here. This is stuff that I'm deciding to scrap out just in case I was gonna do a program. But just in case I was gonna advance too far. But check this out. Look at this. I could put these things. This is me beatboxing and so forth, right? Check this out. So Jumbo. So look, if I do it wrong, right? Like you can make your own audio. You see what I'm saying? Right. You see, Okay, so I mean, obviously the idea is to do the, but anyway, but you get it. So otherwise, you could just make it. You could download sounds from the internet, but make sure that when you download the sounds to the internet, make sure when you download sounds to the internet. By the way, let me make sure that you guys could hear this. I don't know if you heard it, but all right. So I got to put this on. All right. Make sure when you download sounds to the internet that you either attribute those sounds if they have, like you have to look at their copyright requirements, like their creative content, requirements. Otherwise, you can, like if you don't attribute certain things inside of the program, you could get in trouble. You know what I mean? Or if you use copyright material inside of your program and you like sell it or something, you can get into big trouble. So you want to make sure, like these sounds that I have right now, they are non-attributable. There's no attribution. You don't need to attribute the creator or nothing like that. You don't have to say where you got them from, and because of that, that's why I'm using them. Right? And see the exit button, exits the code. All right, so basically, this is how you use SoundLoader, and you just find out all this stuff from the book. So you could just look up SoundLoader, right? Or I mean, you could do two things. One, you could look on Google, and be like, how do I import sound, right? And then the other one, like this is it, audio, play an audio, and they show you an example. They use wave, and .mp3. They don't use, and they use other things, but if they don't use the other stuff, you're going to run into a problem. Oh, and that's fine. You know what I mean? And they also tell you how to use them. So you could say source, but load basically means you load it into your program, and then play means that you can play it. You could find out the length of the song. You can find out the length of it and all that kind of stuff. These are the sounds. It says load the file into memory. Play means play the file. There's stop, which means stop the playback and all that kind of stuff. Unload means take it out of memory if you didn't want it to stay in memory and all that kind of stuff. So again, the book tells you everything, but not just the book. Like you can, if you want to, you can just look on Google. Be like, how do I play things on Kivy? But yeah. All right. So what are we doing now? Give me 2 seconds. All right, so yeah, let's go back to the program. So SoundLoader animation, wrong equals blah blah blah. So then I'm print write. I did print write just so that you can know, just so I can know whether or not a file was uploaded, because sometimes you'll see that the file isn't uploaded. This is kivy.core.audio. But like if I didn't put down a file that was loaded, it would not show me anything. So let's see if there's one that won't work. Let's see. Yeah, so M4A, right? So M4A doesn't work. So when you print it, it says none. See, it says none type. It couldn't play because it was none, all that kind of stuff. But you also see it right here. It says none because it couldn't load the MP4 file. That's why if you want to make your own sounds, you can use Audacity or you could just download it, right? So this is stop all music. I defined a function. So this is how you define functions. You say def, and then you name your function, and then you use parentheses, and you use a colon, right? And then whenever you call this, it will do everything under this. So if I said def.stop all music, and I said print, and print is basically your way of checking, So you say check, and that way when you're debugging, when you're looking through the program, you can, see it says check. Like every time it stops the song, it will do. Every time it stops the music, it will say checking. So that's good, right? So that's how you know it's working. But like that, I'm gonna show you how I call it. So these are the sentences. So sentences are jumbo, hello, blah 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 blah, right? This I'm gonna tell you where I found it. I found it off of this video, learning phrases in Kiswahili. Someone told me that this channel had a good Yoruba, and so they recommended the Swahili, and so they have these kind of videos where they just play the sound. Look, they just play the sound.
Hello.
Jambo, hello. Jambo, right? So why I'm saying all this, because what this does, okay, what this does is that it like I just typed them up. Jumbo, hello, Jumbo, so on and so forth. You could, if you were that technically savvy, you could just clip the whole audio, record where the audio was played, like what the hours are, and then play that particular piece of the audio whenever you press the button or whenever you saw a word. But again, that's just on you, right? My thing was just like, this app is good enough for me, so that's what I'm gonna go. That's what I'm gonna stick with for now, right? Hello, everybody, so on and so forth, right? So that's the list that you can do. Now you can. It doesn't have to be Swahili. You can. Now there's a bit of a limit. There's a bit of a requirement. But what you can do is, as long as you have 4 different answers, and the reason why you have 4 different answers is because there's 4 different buttons. As long as you have 4 different answers, you can have 4 different. I mean, you can have your own kind of question series, your own language. You don't have to, and it doesn't have to just be Swahili. You can put Swahili right next to, Twi. You can have Swahili right next to Meru Nature, but you could also have questions and answers. So you could be like, and important, I want you to realize too, this is a dictionary. So there's lists and there are dictionaries in Python already. This curly bracket signifies that it's a dictionary, and a dictionary is basically something that when you call in the like basically this is called a key and this is called a value, right? So the key is before the colon, the value is after the colon, then you do a parentheses to separate the elements, right? And whenever you call the key, you can pull up the value, right? So if you say sentences, so if I were to say sentences, you have to do it after this though, right? Because see, it's not going to read sentences because it reads it top down, and there's nothing called sentences above this. But if you did sentences jumbo, right, then it would print hello. You get what I'm saying? But anyway, so if you said print sentences jumbo, right? So I think I do it later. No, okay. So I would do print sentences jumbo, right? And then it would say hello, right? Because, hold on a second. So you see, you do print, and you see it says hello randomly, right? The reason being, and you see I said print jumbo, and it shows you. And print sentences, these other stuff I'm going to show you later is going to shuffle it. So you see it shuffled into Mura Refu first instead of jumbo first. But yeah, this is how the print function works, okay? So again, I'm just gonna show you like every element pretty much, and it's going to be a little difficult. But what you want to do is you want to just look at another video that shows you how to use Python, and you want to look at another video that shows you how to do Kivy, and then you could come back, or then you'll already be prepared to make up your own app by that time. But here's what I want to say. So instead of saying all this stuff, sentences, blah 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 blah, with all this stuff, you could be like, who led the UNIA, right? And then you do colon, and then you say Marcus Garvey, right? Okay. Then you say who was the first prime minister of the RC, right? And then you say, let's say, well, I don't know if he was a prime minister, to be honest, but and you just want to have at least four answers, right? So I see, because you can also do like books, but I'm not gonna do that right now. Let's see, who was the spokesman of the NOI? And then you say Malcolm X. And then you say, which of these people, you know what I'm saying? Let's see, which of these people, let's see another question. Which of these people, led a civil, no, I need another question. Let's think. Okay. Which of these people led the UAM? Okay. And then you can say Alton Maddox. Right? And of course, you know, you could always run into errors. Like, let's say if I didn't put down four answers, then it wouldn't have, it might have pulled up an error. But you say, look, see, who was the first prime minister of the DRC? Say Marcus Garvey? No. Okay, Lumumba. Who led the UNIA? And the only thing reason why you don't want 4 choices is because it's going to show you only these 4, you know? Who's the spokesman? Malcolm X, congratulations, you had 1 error. See what I'm saying? But anyway, let's go back up. Let's not even. I mean, that's cute and all, but right. Okay, so let's go back. So we go back to the Swahili part. So again, you could do that for anything. It could be like, what book has this, or even like whose quote, who said, you know, this quote, and then you would give an example of different people. Like, this is something that you could do. If you didn't just jump right into the program, you could select what kind of what kind of learning you want to do from the beginning. So like you could select, oh, I want to do quotes today, or I want to do quotes right now. I want to do books right now. You know, book trivia, like biographical trivia, all that kind of stuff. You know, and you could also repeat the same answers. Like you could have different questions with the same answers, as long as there's 4 different answers to have, right? So print, sentences, choices. So this is just printing to the terminal because I was just debugging. It's not really necessary to have there. In fact, you could just take it out, right? And this is what it looks like over here. It says you print it, and then you print it, and then the shuffle. See, the shuffle part was when you randomly shuffle. So the choices. Now, here's the trouble, right? I want it to be a list so that I can go one by one through all the questions. There's also the chance that you don't want it to go one by one through all the questions, and you just want it to be a random question. In that case, you wouldn't have to do this. But I wanted it to go one by one so that, you know, there's 4 questions. I have 4 chances, and then it's over, you know? But anyway, so choices equals list. So I made it into a list instead of a dictionary, and I made it a list of the keys. So you see, this is what the dictionary looks like. It says, who led the UNIA? Marcus Garvey. Then I said, no, I want it to be a list of only the keys. So it says, who led the UNIA? Who was the first prime minister? Who was the spokesman of NOI? Which of these people led the UAM? Right? And that's it. You know, it's only the keys. Then I would shuffle it. So you could do, this is where the random comes back in. You say random.shuffle choices, and then you print, and I show you what it looks like when you shuffle it. Now, when I shuffled it, instead of who led the UNIA being first, who was the first prime minister of UNIA is first, you know? So that's really, I'm just showing you what random shuffle is, and I just want to show you a lot of things that's going on, right? Now, let's go. We're going to keep progressing. So, shake. So basically I made a animation called shake. And what shake does is it's an animation. So you go back to the top, you imported animation, right? Animations do this. You can do whatever you want in animation. In fact, let's just pull it up in here, right? So Kivy gives you examples in the book, but it's also online, you know, so I looked it up online. Kivy gives examples in the book. Let's see if we can find it. All right, hold on a second. All right, so usually you just look it up online, to be honest, because this book is a little bit whatever. But basically, the examples in the book are going to show that you can move X, you could change the size, all that kind of stuff. And let's see if we can find it. For some reason, I don't remember how to, like, you don't usually have to search this long, but it's, hold on a second. So also I think, see, like here, see 162, let's just do that. So here, so they would give you an example, cancel all animations, widget X, and basically X equals 50 means that you're going to shift it by 50. And you're not going to actually shift the real position. It's just going to look like you changed the position, you know? Whereas you can also just change the position, no animation. Of course, it would just zoom over there. It wouldn't, like, it wouldn't actually move. So you'd want to do the animation. This is showing you the different animation types that they have, like how fast the progress is. Anyway, so let's see. Is there any examples of animation? No. Okay, so you could look online. You could search it, and it's going to be there. Bit of Medicine says peace, fam. Peace, fam. All right. So animation. Basically, this says it's going to move 20 to the right. Right. X equals 20 means it's going to move 20 to the right. Then it's going to move the position 20 to the right. Right. Over 0.05 seconds. Then when you add, you do add, and it's going to then do something after, right? After you finish this animation, it's going to do this animation, move back 20, then it's going to go back to the position, back and forth, and then it's going to go back to 0, all in 0.5 seconds. And you could alter all of this if you want, but this is what it looks like. See how it shakes like no? Yeah. Now you could make it so that it's like over, let's say 0.5 seconds, right? So it's going to be a lot slower on one of the parts, right? See? You saw that? It went slower, right? You could also say size. You could also change the size. Well, I don't know if this is advised. I would have to look into what this is, but let's say 2. I don't know. Let's say it's 2 numbers. I don't recall. Okay, no, it's not 2 numbers. So let's see if this is it. Okay, yeah. So they're just like, yeah, what were you doing? But you would. I wish I had this example in the freaking book. Hold on a second. Let's see if I could do this. See, there's a way to do this. Let's say animation. Okay, here's what I could do. I could search animation with the open parentheses, right? And then they're probably going to show me an example. So yeah, that's one example. Well, that's the X example. I don't want to just show you the X example. This is X and Y, simple animations. Okay, yeah, size, parentheses, 80, right? So here's what you would do. You would say, yeah, size equals parentheses, 80, right? Now, the only problem is that it's not going to revert back after you do an animation. So that's one thing you want to avoid. But you see, it just all shrank into like nothingness. Anyway, because 8090 is like way smaller than the window. The window's probably like 600 by whatever. You can make it so that it's more like a percent of whatever it is that you're doing. But that's something I'd rather you look into because, it's not really that important right now. All right, so anyway, here's the class. You would say this is something that you just want to add. Def, init, self, asterisk, quargs, and then super, init, asterisk, quargs. You just add this. It's not something that you're going to understand. It's not something I understand. It's just helpful when you're doing a def init. If you want to understand, it says that it's going to take in all the keyword arguments, I'm guessing, right? Yeah. So all the parameters that are in the thing, because you want to do a super so that you can do all sorts of stuff without modifying the app. Because usually, I want to point it out this way. Usually when you do an app, right? When you do a class, you would do, if you're inheriting from another class, right? So let's say I have class human, right? And then I just do that, whatever. And I say def, init, self-die, taste equals, sweet or whatever, right? If you want to inherit this class later, you would say class, African, right? And then you put human here, right? And then, oh no, you do it after you do this, right? So, because it has to call up whatever's before it, right? Class African, and then you put human, right? And then you would say def init, right? And then you could say self-die, let's say jump equals, high or whatever, right? Whatever, right? Now the point is this though, that when you do this, right, it's not necessarily the case that you're going to have, this African is going to have taste, right? So you say, let's say you make a human, you name him, or whatever, her, or you name the human, let's say a conquo, right? A conquo equals human, right? And that's it, right? So then you can say print a conquo taste, right? Because a human, he has taste, right? And then let's say you have, you know, Zainab, right? Equals African, right? And then you say print Zainab taste. Let's see if she has taste. I don't know. And you see the parentheses over here? Those are important. I actually don't think I need parentheses here, but yeah, I think maybe I do. But anyway, let's see. Let's see if she has a taste. Yeah, you see, it's empty. See, Zainab doesn't have a taste. Now, what you would do instead is you would say super, and that would mean that you would then inherit everything from human, and then you see it says sweet twice. See? Now it says sweet twice. You could also replace her sweet, because basically I never defined what her sweet was. I just said that she takes the argument human inside, right? But if you say super, now everything that you applied to the earlier class is now in this class, right? Now, here's the thing though. Like, let's say human takes up a variable, like, you know, like you have to add a variable here, whatever. Like, let's say, you know, his name, right? And then what happens is that, like, basically you can't call it in. It's a long story. You'd want to look into a video about it. But basically, long story short, because this is a widget that's really complicated, if you just didn't put down super, right, you would not be making a widget. But if you're going to put down super, it's going to have a bunch of things that initiate it, a bunch of quarks in a sense that you don't know. And because you don't know it and you don't have to know it, you just put in this asterisk, asterisk, quarks, and that just settles it so that you don't run into any kind of errors later on. So that's really just the gist of it. Anyway, and you kind of see it through the book too. So like the book is going to give you examples, and it's going to say quarks, and you're like, oh, that's the only... And you realize that when you're trying to program, it's the only way that you can do that. Here's the thing I want to say, right, about that, though. Because, see, it says it takes in quarks. The thing that I want to say about that, though, is that this book actually has a walkthrough of how to make a program like Pong, like a Pong game, you know? So it's going to have a walkthrough and all that kind of stuff. So don't worry too much. See, look, Pong game tutorial, a simple paint app, and a crash course. So they're going to show you how to make a whole boom, 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 you know? Very easy. So that's just something that I want you to understand too, that you can have a walkthrough, a tutorial, and they show you everything. It's like, look, here's how we're going to start it. And it's online as well. All right. And this is basically, they do this and they add the graphics and they add this and they add that, so on and so forth. So, you know, this is just to give you a better and bigger option on top of everything. Let me see how I'm doing for time. All right. So here, check this out. So self.choices equals choices. What is choices? Choices is right here, the list of the sentence keys, right? Self.sentences equals sentences. What are the sentences? Did I delete that? Oh no, sentences is this. So sentences is this whole thing that we already defined, right? Self.answer equals, and of course you can move all of this into the app, right? It's actually outside of the app, but you can move it into the app so that when you're doing, like, if you add extra functionality, like if you add trivia, if you add book trivia, if you add this or that, so on and so forth, then, you know, you could do it inside of the particular app, so that instead of this, like right now you see it calls up Swahili. Ideally, you'd want it to call up a main page, and then from that main page, it can switch to Swahili. You know, instead of, and of course, what you would do is you would do like this right here. You see this where it says what do you call these? These, like the greater than, less than. That is going to define a class. This right here is the same inheritance thing that I just showed you about classes. So I basically made a class named choice buttons, and it inherited the button function. You know, but more on that later. And this just made it so that I could universalize all of the text and all that kind of stuff within. But basically, long story short, let's see. Self.answers equals lists. dot sentence dot values. So all the answers are going to be the list of all the values, right? Self dot indicator. This indicator is where you are. Like you could name it whatever you want, but indicator on this thing. So basically, you name everything you want. You know, like I just showed you, self dot taste, all that kind of stuff. I just said I'm going to start this indicator at 0 because here's another thing you want to know about Python is that when you're doing a list, it starts every list at 0 instead of at 1. You know. So like I'll show you this way. So let's say you have a list. And so a list are these square brackets, right? So you say you don't want to name it list, but and you notice that everything is like lowercase. That's just a naming convention. You don't have to do that. You could do it uppercase, but usually when you're programming, people suggest that you use lowercase for things, and you know it's just one of those conventions. Like lowercase for like variables and like uppercase for classes and all that kind of stuff. It's just a convention. But let's say we name a thing like let's make a list. Let's just try to find something quickly. Okay, books, right? And all right, yeah, you could do an uppercase like I said. Books. You could do Book of Power, obviously. Right. By the way, for those who don't know, I made the Book of Power, right? The Pro Black Compendium. I did that too. I'm just gonna name my books, I guess. And Zubiri, right? Okay, so here's what we do, right? Now here's the thing you want to do. So you say, what is the length of books, right? The length means how long, you want to print it to your terminal. How long, and that's it. You don't have to print it, but basically the reason why you're printing it is to show it to you. But you can use it without printing it, and that's what I'm going to do later. But basically, like, as long as the length, like basically the length of this is going to be 3, correct? Now, you're going to say, what is the first element in this book? The first element is going to be book 0. So you print book 0, right? And that's going to show you Book of Power, right? And then you're going to try to print, like you say, okay, there's 3 books. So let's do print 3, right? And then there's going to be an error because there's no third element. There's no element 3 because it starts at 0. See, so it's 0, 1, 2, and then 3 is going to be nothing. So it's going to show you an error, right? So look at that. Boom, error, right? So you see it says right here, you print the length of the books, the length of the list is 3. The books 0 is the Book of Power, and books 3 is, you ran into an error, right? And it's going to tell you, it's going to say, list index out of range. So you're gonna run into a whole bunch of errors when you're programming, and you just want to print a statement before the error to see like where you get the error. But that's pretty much it. That's the gist of it. Also, yeah, like I said, everybody get these books, right? So self.errors equals 0. So I'm going to make a counter. Every time you get a wrong answer, you're going to get 0. Self.time equals 0. You're going to start the time at 0. Self.mute. So I made a mute button, and I said, okay, it's not muted. So because it's not muted, it will play music. But you just made it up. You just say it's false. This is the Boolean, what they call it's either true or false, and there's a whole conversation on that. So clock.schedule once is self.update 1, right? So 1 over here, I think, means like 1 second. So after 1 second of the app, it's going to update, okay? It's going to do self.update once, whereas after 1 second of the app, it's going to do self.time, my time function, okay? So I defined the time function, and you notice that for these functions, I did not use the parentheses, right? And I also put a 1 after. This is going to relate to... this is just something that you're going to have to find out in this book of how to use it. So again, you go to this book and you just do clock dot, right? Just to find a clock. And this is how they use it. It's just clock dot game update, scheduling functions of the thing, you know, of the ball or whatever. This is for the Pong app. So even the Pong app is going to show you how to do clock function, right? Schedule once, my callback. But then they show you that when you do my callback, you put a DT. You know, delta time. DT means delta time. And they explain to you everything. It says, call my every 0.5 seconds. You want to call it every 0.5 seconds, then you do 0.05. If you want to call it every 5 seconds, then you do 5. If you only want to call it once, then you just do my callback. And I guess I didn't have to put down the DT the 1 over there. So that's probably my bad. I probably shouldn't have put the 1 here. But that's what I'm saying. You just look at, let's see if this actually works. But if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But yeah, see, it works. Boom, boom. Okay. Okay. So like a large part of programming is just asking questions. Okay? It's just asking questions. So and the way how you'd ask the questions is you just go to Google. You just go to Google and you just say, how do I do it? And then you're like, oh, because like this stuff right here, I didn't even know. I forgot how to do this. So I just said, how do I start up? Because when you do init, if you do things like, for instance, if I did this self.update during initialization, it's way before. Like basically what this does is it delays all of this. If I had said self.1.text and all that kind of stuff before like doing outside of the clock function, right? Then it's not going to do anything. It's going to say there's no such thing exists, because what happens is this: the page is going to read this first, and then it's going to read this, right? So if I reference this stuff before they exist, before this page is even read, right? If I say, oh, for self.id phrase, make it into this text, and I can actually show you what I'm talking about right here. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So self.id text equals, let's say it this way. You could say self.id text here. This is the one right here. So you say, you put it before you schedule, right? So before you do the clock things, because this is a really important one right here. If you're gonna use init, if you're not gonna use init, then you don't have to worry about it, but you should use init. So if you do this, then it's an error. See, it's like, what? There's no such thing as self.ids.phrase. Now you're like, yeah, there is. It's right here, right? But they didn't read this page yet. So you have to make it so that they read this page. And what you do is that you say, okay, look, you're going to schedule this for after you read the page, right? Like basically the clock is going to run right after you do all this. You get what I'm saying? So after it reads this, then it's going to run the clock, and then the clock is going to be able to reference everything inside of it. So you see, this is inside of this. This is exactly inside of this update function. And you see how it says dt equals 0, dt equals 0. But it's exactly in this update function. And I didn't even have to say dt equals 0. I could just say dt. But the point is that it's exactly in this. No, actually I should have. I should have said dt equals 0. But anyway, it's exactly in this function. But because it can't read it yet, you would do this clock.schedule once. This is actually something that I forgot. So it's really important, right? Clock.schedule interval. So then you just say what the interval is. The clock you could even make the clock go up every 0.1 second, right? And then you're going to see how the time is just going to go quickly, right? See? It's just racing, It's not accurate to, how long. And then, of course, I just said it'd be 1 minute, but it wasn't 1 minute. It was like 6 seconds, right? So instead of doing that, you could just notice how you could change everything you want. So now here's what I did. So I said, this is the next function. I said, when you make a wrong answer, you're going to add to the errors, right? You're going to stop all the music, and you're going to play the sound wrong, and you're going to do the shake, shake.start self.ids grid. So what that means is that every time that I get something wrong, I'm going to add to this thing that was 0, self.errors equals 0. I'm going to stop all the music. That was the function I defined earlier right here. That means that I'm going to, all this audio, I'm going to say wrong.stop, stop this, stop that, stop this. If I didn't have stop the music, then it would just keep playing even when it's wrong. But of course, with these small sounds, you're not going to notice too much right here. Like, you're not going to notice. But, obviously with the beatboxing one, you'll notice when it's just, they're all beatboxing over each other. But yeah, let's see if, and so this right here, this hashtag is how you cancel out something when you're programming it. Okay. Yeah, you can't really tell the difference, but like for the beatbox, you probably tell a bigger difference. But you just add that if you want to, like, not have the music playing over each other, right? If mute is false, then you would play the song, right? Now I got a mute button over here. You see, and that will make it so that when it's muted, you would change it to true. If it's not true, I mean, I'll show you that later. So shake dot start. This is how you use the animation. You would just do dot start, and then you would say what you're gonna shake. Now you could also shake 1. You know, the first button. You know, like see, you could just shake the first button. You know, but instead I said shake the grid. That's why you would and this is all referenced by this right here. See, id.grid versus id.1, right? And I mean, if you want, I can show you this whole layout right now, right? So grid layout means that you're gonna find a grid. You're gonna make it into 3 rows, okay? 3 rows means this is row 1, this is row 2, this is row 3. Now you're saying to yourself, why is this row so small, right? The reason is because I'll show you in a second, right? So now the size of this grid is going to be root.width. So root means the size of the app. So it's going to be the same size. It's going to be the same width as the app and the same height as the app. Now I could do 0.5 times height, right? 0.5 times height, and then I could even do like a raw number like 500, right? Or okay, 500. Okay, right? And then you'll see what that looks like, right? So you see now it's 500, and you see it's half of the width. Now look at this. Now when I change the size of the window, you see how the X changes, right? But look at this. When I change the Y doesn't change. Why? Because I said the grid layout is going to be a raw 500 regardless, right? Whereas this, the height is going to be proportional to, is going to be scalable with the height of the app, right? That's really important. You could also do like position, I think it's POS, and then you could say 200, and you could say 0.2 times root height if you want, right? And this will just show you what that looks like too. So, and of course you see it's a X and Y. So you see it's always going to be 200 from the left, right? See, it's always 200 from the left. And then the height though is always going to change with regards the size. See, it's always going to be 0.2 of the height away. So obviously I wouldn't do all that because that looks silly, but it's just something so you could know when you're, like if you're making a different type of app. You know, I would usually do the root.width, root.height, so that the height and width change with the scaling, so that when you transfer it to whatever size phone you want, like obviously if it's a tiny phone, it's gonna look horrible. If it's a widescreen phone, it's gonna look pretty good. You know, right? If it's you know, you see what I'm saying? But okay, so there's 3 rows. So then now for this other row, I'm gonna make another grid, right? So this other grid is going to be this grid right here. So it's going to be 3 columns, right? The columns are going to be the size. Now the size hint basically is the same as this root.height kind of thing, right? Because it's a grid, you can say size hint. So I say it's going to be 1 and 0.1. So it's going to be 1/10 the height of the whole grid, but it's going to be 1, like the whole width of the grid, right? Now I could change this as well, and I could be like 0.4, right? You could even do, I think, higher than 1. I'm not too sure, but you know, like what? Okay, so it's not, for some reason it didn't register that. Let's just double check. Yeah, see, sometimes you're gonna find unexpected consequences, and that's fine. You know, like again, like when it comes to this stuff, a lot of it is learning, right? But let's see if this one right here. I think I might have something else in place where, you know, well, see, this is what it looks like if you don't do the 0.1 on the height. You know, then everything is evenly the same. Because grid layout basically makes grids that are the same height and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I think possibly the reason why, I think the reason why is because I don't have any rows. Yeah, I think that's what happened. So if I said rows, I couldn't even say, right? I couldn't even say what I would have to do. But But basically, long story short, let's not even sweat it, right? So here's another thing. So toggle button. So toggle button's another type of one of these classes. You could define it in your Python, but instead of defining it in the Python, I defined it in the Kivy. Makes it a lot easier because all you have to do is say toggle button, right? Toggle button. The text on it will be mute, right? You could change that text. The color is going to be this. Now this is really important right here. So these are 4 numbers, right? Between 0 and 1, okay? 1, so this always is going to fit into this R red, blue, green, I think? No, red, green, blue. You know how they want to mess it up, right? Red, green, blue, A, okay? So what A, basically red is obviously red, you know, green is green, and blue is blue. And then A, I can't remember what it is, probably like absolute, but basically it's opacity, right? So 0.3 means that it's pretty transparent, right? 1 means that it's not transparent at all. So let's just say it's 1, right? And then you're going to see the colors all full and bold. And then what 0.3 basically means is that it's going to be a little bit transparent, you know? Or it's going to be more transparent than not. If I said 0, then you won't see the color at all, right? See what I'm saying? You don't see the color at all. So again, I just like 0.3, so I'm just gonna do 0.3. It says now on the toggle button, it says on state root.mute. So that means that when I change the state of the toggle button from either being down or up, and you probably can see how it looks down or up a little better when it's full. But when I do that, see it's down, so then that changed the state, and it called the mute function. When I do it again, it changed the state and it called the mute function. What is the mute function? The mute function is that if the self.mute is false, so double equal means that like you're asking whether it's actually I think I can hold it over. You're asking whether something is that other thing, right? If it is false, right, then I change it to truth, right? So equal means that you change the value of it, right? So you set a value for it. So if the value is false, right, then I change it to true, right? So it starts out false, so then I change it to true. So now it's muted. But else, so it's if else, which basically means that if it's not the if statement, then I set it to false, right? So that means that if it were true, so you could also do elif, which is, you know, I'll show you that later. But basically elif would be, well, if it's true, then you set it to false, but whatever. You set it to false, but you don't need to say that because you know that it's either true or false, right? Because that's how you set it. Now, you could set it like, you could set a word here, and then that would be, but actually it'll still work because it's whatever, right? Because this doesn't check to see if it's true or not, just check to see if it's false. And if it's not false, then it'll change it to false, right? So let's keep going back. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, but whatever. So this is label. The label, so there's 3 buttons in this grid. It's a toggle button, it's a label, and it's a button, another button, right? On the third button, the third button says text, it says exit, and then I changed it to a color. If you guys notice, it's red and then green, but it's not pure red and not pure green. It's like 0.2 in both of them. And you can just play around with these colors if you want to, right? Yeah, you can just play around with these colors. I don't need to show you that. And then it's like on press app.stop. So the app function, so the app itself has a function called stop, and that will just stop the app so that you can exit the whole game. So you see now you notice that the time is going up, right? That's from ID time. So I just said ID time. You notice that these 2 don't have IDs because I'm not calling them in the original function, so I don't really care to put them in an ID, right? And yeah, sure, if you want to see another color, you could do that, right? Let's just show you what a little bit of color looks like. So this is more blue. So you see it's like red and blue, which is about purple. You know what I mean? With a little bit of green in it. You know, if you don't have any green in it, then it's probably going to be like perfect purple, you know? So you could just play around, find your own colors that you want to use, you know? I kind of, if you didn't pick up on it, it's a whole red, black, and green on the top, you know? You know what I mean? You know, I just can't help myself. Red, black, green, right? Anyway, so that's it. So app.stop, you show the app function, exit. ID for the label is time. So this is what the time function looks like. It says self.time equals plus equals 1. So plus equals 1 basically means that you have the time and you add one to it. You could also do time equals time plus 1, right? Oh, sorry, self.time. And that's something you have to realize too, plus 1. But instead of doing that, the shorthand for that is plus equals 1, right? So it just adds 1 to it. You can also do adds 4 to it, and it will just add 4 every second. See? Anyway, so I'm just showing you the versatility of programming, right? So then it says self.ids.time. So every time you call the time function, it's going to do this. It's going to show you the text. It's going to change the text into time elapsed. And I'm showing you a bunch of stuff, I'm just overloading you with a bunch of different functionality. These are curly brackets like in the dictionary, but it's not a dictionary when it comes to strings. These parentheses, these things are called strings. And it says time. You say self.time. Like basically you do dot format, and then that format will fill in whatever you want over here. So it could just be like you could say just chicken or something. You know what I mean? Like it just says whatever is behind this, you're going to fill in, into the first parentheses. This is the first curly brackets. This is the second curly brackets, right? And the only reason why I'm doing this is because because it's a label, it needs to have a text, You can't put a number into it. You have to put a string, So time elapsed, then you can see I just put in chicken, and it's just going to be like chicken. You know what I mean? It's just going to say chicken. So, but obviously I don't want that. I'm just showing you I'm hungry, right? No, I'm joking. Minutes, and then so minutes, this is the double divide. So you could say divide by 60, and then it's going to just show you 1 over 60. It's going to do the math, right? A bunch of ugly math, right? If you do double, then it's going to show you what is it going to show? Oh, it's going to show you the number of times that 60 goes into time, like raw. You know what I mean? Like how many times does 60 go into time, right? If you do the parentheses, it's going to show you just the remainder, right? So the remainder when you divide is basically this is what you would do if you wanted to show after it gets past 60, it's going to go back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Because that's the remainder when you divide by 60. So it's pretty useful in general, but it's not useful in this circumstance, so I didn't use it. But you'll understand. You'll see. Like I said, if you're interested in programming, then all that kind of stuff. So are you going to work on a GUI for the app? Are you going to? So Mchaka says, are you going to work? Stack Overflow is where you would look. So GUI. The GUI is Kivy. So Kivy is the GUI. So that's what I'm working on. This is the GUI, yeah. If you want, I'll have to pull up my phone so that you guys don't have to see that ugly ass screen. But hold on a second. I just gotta with content. Anyway, so. Yeah, I forgot that my phone's not working, so can't pull it up on the other screen. All right, so anyway, look here. So this says, if the indicator is greater than the length of the answers minus 1, then you would show the text, congratulations. You would change the first button into restart. You would change the second button into parentheses, which means basically empty string. The third button to empty string, and the fourth button into quit, okay? So you do all that, and then you say return. So return would pull you out of this function. Because if you did not have return, then while you would change all this stuff, it will then read all this stuff. You get what I'm saying? So you put down return so that it doesn't read the stuff underneath it. You get what I'm saying? So that's really important, right? And that's not something that you just figure out when you're printing, when you're doing it. Because first you'd write this and be like, okay, I'm good. And then it's just going to call up everything afterward. And because it's going to call up everything afterward, none of this really mattered. None of this really happened. Because it's going to happen as fast as the computer can show it. And the computer is going to show it faster than you could see it, or faster than you could process it, faster than you could react to it. But here's what it is. So you say return and you call it out. But now why the minus 1? The -1 because, again, like I said, the indicator is going to go above the length of the of the uh, of the of the answers, right? I mean, I guess because I said greater than, you could have said if it equals the length of the answers, then you wouldn't have to do the -1. But that's pretty much it, right? So anyway, so let's see. Self.ids.text.phrase equals choices self.indicator. So basically what this says is this. And by the way, this self thing is particular to this function. So if I had another class, right? Like I think you saw that in the other example of the classes when I had the human and the African. Like you can't pull up the self choices from the other from another class. Like the classes are independent of each other. Just like the definitions. This is a definition right here. Definitions are independent of each other. I can't call up anything inside of this in another thing. Whereas this right here is universal to everything because it's outside of everything, right? These stuff are independent. So self means self.choices. It's only for this Swahili widget. And you could call it up like, Swahili, print Swahili. Yeah, obviously you do this after everything, but I'm just doing it right here because it's easier. Swahili, and then you can say choices. You get what I'm saying? And then you would be able to show all the choices of Swahili. But anyway, so what was I saying about update? Okay, so you go down. It says choices.index. So this basically means if it starts out at 0, it's going to show you the first phrase it's going to show you the first one of self.choices. Choices are the keys, right? Because you see it says, we define it up here, the list of keys. So you say the first one after you shuffle it, right, is going to be the thing that's going to show for phrases. Sorry, so let me show you that. So label.id. So the second label right here is, so after you do this grid layout, the next thing you do is you show a label, and then you show another grid layout. So the label right here is going to have a particular font size of 32, and then the ID over here is going to be phrases, right? Then you have another grid layout after that, which is going to have 4 columns, right? Let's just show it. It's going to have 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you could also do it, you could say rows instead, right? If you wanted to, you could say rows, right? And it's going to show you 4 buttons on top of each other, right? See? What is your name? I reckon you. You're very handsome, right? Okay. Okay. All right. Anyway, so I don't choose to do that, so it's whatever, right? Let's see if we can keep going. Oh snap! I forgot that I was doing. All right. So let's see. Columns, choice buttons. So choice buttons basically is I made a class. It could have just been buttons. But buttons, the thing with buttons is that, I'll show you in fact. I'll show you what buttons looks like. So this is buttons. I'll just do the first one as buttons, and then you'll see why I made it into something. Oh, sorry, button. I'll do the first one as button, and then you can see why. And you see, it's just error. So you see, it says see you tomorrow. You see how the font is kind of small. I don't know why it's so big, to be honest. But it's huge, right? And all that kind of stuff. You see? Like the font is tiny and all that kind of jazz, right? So instead I do, I go back to choice buttons, What does choice buttons do? Okay, so choice buttons, it changes the size hint to 0.3, 0.2. It really doesn't look like it, but that's what it's supposed to do. The font size, it changed. The text, it changed to the root.width. So the text size is changed, whereas there's like no limit. Oh yeah, so this basically means that it's going to be, it's going to like fit the width of the button, So root would be this button, right? The button itself. So the text is going to fit the width of the button, and the H-align basically means that it's going to be centered. I'll show you what that looks like too. So it's like, do you love me, blah, blah. You see how there's like spacing on the left or the right or whatever? And then you say this. You take out this phrase, right? You take out H-align, and they're all to the left. See what I'm saying? You don't want it all to the left, so that's why you do H-align. And you do this for like the general so that you don't have to print it over and over again. So that if you want to change things, if you say, oh, 24 is too small and you want it to be 30, you don't have to like go through the whole app and change everything. You get what I'm saying? this all like makes everything a lot easier. I like 24 though. And I actually really did it so I could have had like a different color, like a consistent color. But because the app is changing the color, because I wanted to change the color randomly, you know, I didn't. You don't actually have to have that there. So anyway, so look. So basically, all I do with this is that I define the ID for each button, right? I define the background color for each button. Now again, this doesn't apply anymore because, like I said, like if that's another thing I said. So I said if you want to change everything, you have to just do it like each page, right? I mean each button, but you don't whatever. So on press it calls the function 1. On press it calls the function 2. On press it calls the function 3, and on press it calls the function 4. However, if the text for this press is quit, you know, with a question mark, then you will stop it. Now, if it didn't have a question mark, it would not do it. So this is just something that I want to show you how you can use your programming. Like you could use some Python even in this KV file. So it says if, then you would call quit, but it's like I had some errors with this because I was like, how come this is not quitting? And it's because I didn't have the question mark, you know? So that's another thing to consider. So I actually just showed you all of that. So you see right here, it says, I'll change the word to text. I'll change the word to quit. So now what that also means is that you do not want your program, when you have these answers, you don't want any of them to say quit and also show up as the fourth option. Because if it shows up as the fourth option and it says quit, then it's going to quit your app, you know? So there's a lot of limitations to this as well that you just have to bear in mind. So anyway, so choices.0 is the first indicator. Stack Overflow, like the brother's saying. All right. Self.answers equals self.sentences, choices, self.indicator. So these are the different answers that you can... Oh, so the first answer is going to be the first self.sentence that choice indicator, right? So how does this work? What does this mean? So basically choices. Okay, so the self.phrase.text equals choices self.indicator. Okay, so this is going to be the key, right? And then this is going to say access the value, because self.sentences is going to be sentences, right? Which is this thing, right? So let's say if this was the first element, right? This was 0, right? Then when you have Jumbo and you enter it into sentences, it's going to pull up hello, right? So this is how you would find out what the answer is to the question. The answer to the question, self.answer, is going to be the is going to be this whole key, right? It's going to be the value of this key. So you get this key, this is the key, and you put it in this, and that's going to be the answer, right? And so these are all the choices. It's going to be an empty list, right? Then you say self.all choices, and you append self.answer, okay? So you append self.answer. What that basically means is that, I'll show you right here. So like I said, when it comes to apps, if you're confused about anything, you just print. You say print self.all choices, right? You could even, and you can do comma, self.answer, comma, self.ids.phrases.text, right? And then you do self.choices right here. Print self.all choices. And then I want you to also do this and print self.all choices. Here. We're going to do it like 4 times. Self.all choices. And then you're going to do print.self.all choices, right? Okay, and this is important too. This is like this shuffle right here is important. In fact, we're gonna go through. So now it says for I in range 3, because you want 3 extra fake answers, right? You say fake equals self.answer, right? This is self.answer. Self.answer is going to be a list. It's going to be, no, self.answer is your fake answer, right? Sorry, it's your real answer, right? Then you say while fake is in self.all choices, right? While fake is in self.all choices. So that means that self.all choices is a is is self.all choices, all the choices that there are, right? Fake is going to be set to the answer, right? And so you say, while this answer is in the all choices, you're going to change fake into a different answer according to a random answer within fake. I'm sorry, within self.answer. So within all the answers that you can have, right, all the values that you can have, you're going to choose a random answer, random.rand int 0 to len whatever. Basically what that means is that you're going to choose a random number between 0 and the length of and how many answers that how many possible answers you can have minus 1 so that you don't run over, right? You're going to choose a random number and you're going to set it, and you're going to choose a random answer and you're going to set it to fake. But if fake is already in the all choices, then you're going to change it. Then you're going to try another. You're going to keep doing it until you don't have an answer that's already in the all choices. Okay? So that's what while means. So like while this is inside of this, then you don't want to choose it. Like you want to keep going. So like the way how that works, I'll show you another example of that. So it's like we could do it over here. You could say while x is in let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So while x is in this, right? And then you want to define x. So you say x equals 0, right? Say x equals 0, right? So you say print x, okay? Print x, right? And then say x plus equals 1, right? And then let's just do return, right? So basically this is saying that if x equals 0, right, then if x is in this list, right, then you will add a value to x. You'll add 1 to x. And so basically after all this is said and done, you'd eventually print, you say finished, and you'll say x equals, you'll say finished, and then comma, and you'll say x, right? You'll just print x or whatever, right? And then you'll say, let's say it's not finished, right? So you'll see what I'm talking about, right? You do this, print, boom. Okay, 1. Okay, so everything was not working because the app didn't finish loading because I did the return, right? So it says while x is in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you print x is not finished, and then you add 1. Sorry, I skipped 2. So because I skipped 2, you saw that it ended up being where is it? For some reason, it didn't print the last thing. But you see that it just kind of said, okay, now that... Oh, I think I put capital X. That was the problem. So, yeah, you put X. Okay, let's see. Okay, so... Okay, I don't know what. But that's what I'm saying. The thing with programming is that it's like you're going to run into a bunch of problems. But you see, because I didn't add the 2, because I didn't have the 2, it just kind of added, and then it was like, okay, it's no longer in it. So this is probably a better example. See, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it just whatever. So, and of course, like the app doesn't read the other stuff because of whatever have you. Yeah, this is actually pretty long. Huh? I thought it was gonna be like a 30-minute thing. I was like, let me go enjoy this sunny day. But anyway, let's go. So let's just show you what this looks like, all choices and all that kind of stuff. Let me explain to you right here too. So basically, so it says while this is inside of this, then you're not going to. So you make this all choices, going to have the answers, and then you print all choices. Then you shuffle all choices so that it's not always going to be, because whenever you print it, the first thing you're going to put is going to be always going to be choice 1. So you do random.shuffle to shuffle up the choices and then change the order of the choices. So it's not always going to be answer 1. And that's like a programming mistake that a lot of people make. So you see that I printed out all choices. All choices are empty, empty. It's empty right now. See, I defined it as empty list, right? The answer was I don't love you, right? The phrase is sikupendi, okay? Then I say I'm going to add it. So I do self.answer, self.choices append, and I add it to the list. So now you see it's in the list, right? Then I say I'm going to print it again, but I'm going to add a bunch of other answers. Do you love me? Goodbye. I like you, right? So I added all those. Then I say, look, I'm going to shuffle it. And so I shuffled it so that now it's I like you, goodbye, blah, 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 blah. If I did not shuffle it, it would always be the first answer. It would always be that list before that. So I can actually show you what that looks like if I don't shuffle it. You know, and of course, you know, I'm just showing you the nuances of this thing so that when you're, because like you could print, you could make anything. Like the random function is good if you were trying to do like a video game. You see, it's not the first answer all the time, right? But check this out. If I do not shuffle it, right? If I say, screw it, don't shuffle it, right? Then it's always the first answer. See what I'm saying? Because I never shuffled it. See what I'm saying? So that's another thing to bear in mind. So now here's what it is. So for the first button, it's going to be all choices. So you have the self.all choices. It's going to be the first phrase, right? It's going to be 0. It's going to be 1. It's going to be 2. It's going to be 3. Now here's where the color changes randomly, right? So random.random is going to give you a random number between 1 and between 0 and 1. So for this, for these colors, for the background colors, right? I say it's going to be random.random. So a number between 0 and 1, number between 0 and 1, number between 0 and 1, and then it's going to be 1. As I say, that's going to be the transparency, right? You could also change the transparency to like 0.3, 0.2. You can keep that at 1, and you can keep that at 0. And you're going to notice that the last one is always going to be the color of the background, which is black. See? It's always going to be the color of the background. These are all going to be darker because they're the background is black. If the background were not black, right? If the background were white, then actually, let's see if I could do that. So you could also change the background, I think. Let's see if we could do it this way. So see, like everything corresponds to what's above it, and make sure you notice you pick up on the tabs, like how I tab it to the right or whatever, right? So you could make the background, let's say, red, right? Let's see if this works. No, it didn't work. Maybe for the grid layout. Let's see if the background for the grid layout. Because a lot of things you really... Yeah, it's not working. So you'd probably... Yeah, so it would be... Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. Because it might just have to be the back... Like, could it work for the app itself? I don't know. Let's see. I don't think so. But let's just try it out. Maybe that'll work. Nope, they're like, what are you talking about? But yeah, so that would be like, let me see, is it color? Maybe you could see color. Let's see if it be color. Because sometimes it's not going to be the background, it's going to be the regular color. You know? Because like if you do color when you're doing the label, it's going to change the font color. You know? Yeah, this thing is a little bit, like I said, I'm wasting a little time, so I'm not even yeah, okay, don't know. All right, so like that's something that you'd want to just Google search, like as the brother pointed out, Stack Overlay, you know. Anyway, let's see, Stack Overflow. All right, so let's go. So here's this. So for button 1, you can do self.ids.1.text equals restart. So one of the things just to make sure is that none of the words would translate into restart. And then if it restarts, if you press restart, then you would shuffle all the choices again. You'll set the indicator back to 0. You'll set the errors back to 0. And then you would update. What is update? This is update. Update is this thing right here, right? And so this is another function. That's 1, right? Else, if the text is not restart, then you would say if the self.answer is equal to the self.allChoice 0, right? And actually, it probably would have been better if I said it is equal to self.1.ids.1.text, right? But if the answer is equal to this, so that means basically you find a true state. If this is true, then you would add the indicator plus 1. You would stop all music, and you would play the the right song, right? You'd play the right audio, and then you would update, right? And if it's wrong, then you just do the wrong function. So I define the wrong function over here, and like I said, for the wrong function, add an error, stop all music, and if it's not muted, then you would play the wrong song, and you would shake the screen, okay? All right, and then so that's it. So for number 2, it's the same thing. If self.ids.1 equals restart, then you just do pass. You just don't do anything. Pass just means you don't do anything, right? So if the first button has a text that says restart, then you don't do anything. If however the answer is equal to the second choice, right, then you would do all the right stuff, and you could also make this into a right function. But see, the thing is, the reason why I didn't do it is because I had this song. I had a different beat for each right answer. So for the second one, if it were right, it would do a different beat. Then if for the first one, if it were right, it would do a different beat. So that's the reason why I didn't like make it all into one thing. But you could just do def.right, whatever. And you could also do this as one line if it's not whatever. But make sure you pay attention to these parentheses things. So I would advise you go into the Python and you learn a little. I mean, you just like look at the Python tutorial or whatever. So the same thing for the third one, write3.play. It doesn't have to be write3.play. It could be write1.play. You know what I mean? And you just universalize it. And then so number 4, same thing. Just the fourth song, and then you would just do the fourth choice. And that's actually it. That's how you would do this whole app. That's everything actually. So yeah, that's everything. Let's see. Any more comments? No. And all that jazz. So I'm just gonna end the stream. Shem Hotep, Uncle Justin Ebneb, Amen Ma'at Dua Netre. Damn. Okay.